So welcome students. In today's session we will be moving on to unit 3, and we have already done 2 sessions earlier, and this is our third session from unit 3, which is Holocaust and its fallout. So what do you mean by Holocaust? Holocaust is murdering of people, that too in a massive way, in a huge way. And what is the consequence, or what is the result after that? Here we learn about how the Jews, they were murdered by Hitler and the Nazi group. That's what we are going to learn in this session. After Hitler came to power, the Jews were persecuted in many ways. So already we have learned that the only aim of Hitler, he is the dictator of Germany, he wanted to bring an end to the Jews. So persecuted means he killed people in many ways. They were deprived means they were not given, they were not given their civil rights. Their properties were confiscated means it was taken away from them, and many were confined to ghettos are slums. So when you take off their properties, they ultimately have to end up living up in slums. So eventually the Nazis, that is the group in Germany, came up with the notion of the final solution, which was to exterminate the Jews completely. So when Hitler was doing this, the Nazi group, they came to a conclusion that the Jews must be completely killed. None of them should be left behind. So here we see what is the meaning for the word Holocaust. Is used to describe the genocide, that's murdering of nearly 6 million Jews by the Germans during World War II. Annihilating, that means completely destroying the Jews, was one of the main items on the political agenda of Hitler and the Nazis. So their agenda is, their thought was that they should completely eradicate or completely destroy the Jews. Hitler was able to play on the anti-Jewish feelings which were common in Germany and in fact throughout Europe. So Hitler used their feelings, the anti-Jewish people who were not in the Jewish form, and because these Jews, they were throughout Europe. Jews were scattered means they were all here and there, all across Europe, and many had become prominent. Prominent is well known in business, in performing arts. They were good at performing arts like dance, singing, and professional fields. Professional fields is doctors, teachers, and all that. Money lending. So they were people who could lend money for interest. Money lending was a major business activity among Jews, and this strengthened the prejudice against them. So these people, they had a lot of money, and they were lending money, giving money and earning interest, and that was a big strength for them. Shakespeare's play The Merchant of Venice clearly depicts means shows the dislike and distrust of Jews among the people. So that play, that's a very famous play by Shakespeare, where we see how the Jews, were treated, and that's we learn there. So that shows, that was an evidence. The next we come on to Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So human rights means manida urimai. Human means manida urimai. So in the aftermath, that is after the Holocaust, the UNO is United Nations Organization, in its charter, this word you have to remember, charter is written grant or written permission, pledge to promote universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all without distinction to race, sex, language, and religion. So what did UNO, they had permission. They were supposed to give human rights, they were supposed to observe human right, and they were given fundamental freedom to whom? To any person, irrespective of which caste they are, which language they are, what religion they are. So that was the work of the UNO. It's a group, remember that. The UN, that is the United Nations, efforts to protect human rights on a global basis resulted in the constitution of UN Commission on human rights. So UN Commission is a group. So what is that group going to do? It is going to build, it is going to protect human rights, okay, globally means worldwide. A committee constituted under its auspices was chaired by Eleanor Roosevelt, wife of late President Franklin Roosevelt. So this committee, who was the leader, it was Eleanor Roosevelt. She was the wife of late means the person who died, President Franklin Roosevelt. The members of the UN Commission included, so who were the members? Okay, they were Charles Malik of Lebanon, P. Sing Chang of Nationalist China, John Humphrey of Canada, and René Cassin of France. These were the members of the UN Commission. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was his important contribution. So what was the important work of this UN Commission? They declared the rights of humans. Okay, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights set forth fundamental human rights in 30 articles. So in 30 articles, that is laws, they were able to write what are the fundamental human rights, okay, basic human rights. The UN adopted this historic charter on 10th December 1948. This day, that is 10th December, is observed globally means worldwide, as Human Rights Day. So which day you have to remember? 10th December 1948. Provisions of some 90 national constitutions since 1948, according to the Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt Institute in New York, can be traced to this declaration. So you can trace means you can go back and find how many 90 national constitutions since which year? 1948. The next one is birth of Israel. A major outcome of the Holocaust. So what was the major result of the Holocaust? It was the creation of the state of Israel. So a new state, Israel was there, but it was identified as a homeland for the Jews. So Israel was considered as a safe place for the Jews, while this was historically the original home of the Jews during Roman times. So during Roman times, Israel was historically by nature the original home of the Jews. Next we move on to new international order. By 1941, the United States and Britain began to give serious consideration to the need for international cooperation for achieving lasting peace among all nations. So by 1941, that is 1939, we have come to the end of World War II. By 1941, USA, United States and Britain, they were only having a keen thought to bring international peace, and they wanted that peace to last for long. They wanted it to be there for long. International economic and financial stability were also important objectives. So what was the second thought in the United States and Britain? They wanted to bring international economic and financial stability. All these would need international organization. So for them to do this, they needed worldwide organizations, groups. Organizations are nothing but groups. And that group should have members of various nations across the world working together for these common objectives. So they thought they must have different organizations. What kind of organization? International groups they wanted to have, and in that group they thought they must have international members, like from one member from India, one member from America, one from Britain, one from China. So they wanted that so that they can all work together and to serve that main purpose. This ultimately resulted in the establishment of the United Nations. So what are the organizations? UN, United Nations. World Bank was another organization. International Monetary Fund, this was another organization. All these are international organization. Organization, remember, groups with many associated organizations which deal with basic issues of importance for all societies and countries. So they were organizations where they will focus on the basic issues that the country needs. United Nations, a very important question and a very important part to study in this lesson. You can see the symbol of the UN, maybe in the book it will be still more clear. The first initiative for the United Nations, so the first step for the United Nations, remember, don't get yourself confused with United States and United Nation. United States is USA, United Nation is UN, okay, that's a group, came from the United States. So you can see that difference there. The first step by the United Nation, from where it came? From the United States. And Britain in 1941, when they issued a joint declaration known as the Atlantic Charter. Again, let me repeat, what is charter? It is a written permission. So two countries came together and they put a declaration, which is the United Nations and Britain. This declaration of the United Nations was accepted by all the 26 countries which were fighting against the Axis power. So this declaration is like an agreement, okay. This was accepted. So what agreement they were making? To maintain peace. So this was accepted by 26 countries, and these 26 countries were fighting against the Axis powers. Who are the Axis powers? Germany, Italy and Japan. So this was signed on New Year's Day of 1942. The Charter of the United Nations was signed on June 26, 1945 by 51 nations. So how many of them signed this written agreement? 51 nations signed in. And India which was not an independent country then, also was a signatory to the charter. So at that point of time, India was not an independent country. That means it was under the British rule, but still they had the authority to sign in that written agreement. Now the United Nations, now at present they have 193 member states, and each one, big or small, has an equal vote in the United Nations. So how many countries are there in the UN? UN is a United Nations organization, which is a group, and you have 193 members, and they have equal votes. So now here first, when they initially, what was the agreement? That's what they have given in the next part. We, the people of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations. So what is the written agreement? The nations, all the nations, they agreed to save the succeeding means the forthcoming generation from scourge of war. It's like fear of war, okay, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrows to mankind. So they have already seen two great wars, and these two great wars have brought in sorrow, right? Untold, you cannot tell those sorrows. And to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights. So one was to save the world from war. The other one is to give fundamental human rights in the dignity and worth of the human person. So they are supposed to maintain dignity and worth of the human person in the equal rights of men and women. So next one is they should maintain equal rights for men as well as women and nations, whichever is large and small, from the preamble to the United Nations. Next is something very important. These are the organs, okay. General Assembly and Security Council. The United Nations functions almost like a government. So the UN, which is a group, it functions like a government through its principal organs. Principal organs means main organs, main departments, you can say, which are similar to legislative. So whenever we come across this word legislative, you should remember it is laws, okay. Executive, so when laws are written, it has to be implemented, it has to be put into action, that is executed. And judicial is judge, okay. Judicial wings of a state. In the General Assembly, that's what we are learning, is the body in which each member state is represented. So remember, in the General Assembly, every country will have one member there. So it meets once a year. So how many times will General Assembly meet? Once a year. And issue of interest, and it will discuss on the issues of interest and the points of conflict, and if there are any fights going on, they will discuss on this assembly. The Security Council has 15 members. So the second organ we talk about is the Security Council. Now how many countries are there in the Security Council? 15 members are there. 5 countries, that is United States means USA, Britain, France, Russia and China are permanent members. They are permanent where in the Security Council. And there are 10 temporary members who are elected in rotation. Other 10 members are temporary. These two bodies function like a legislature. Again I told you, they are the ones forming the laws. Each of the permanent members, how many permanent members we have? 5, has the right to veto. Veto means they have the right to block any major decision that is being taken. Okay. Each of the permanent member has the right to veto. Veto is like cancelling any decision by the other members of the Security Council. So who are the other members? Are 10 countries. Okay. So they have these 5 members, they have the right to cancel those 10 members' decision. This right has often been used to block. So why is this right given? They can block major decisions, especially by the superpowers, the US and Russia. So if the superpower like America and Russia, they put in some condition which they do not like, they can vote against it and they can solve it. Major issues and conflicts are discussed in the Security Council. So remember, the UN, we have learned General Assembly, one is one, and the Security Council. The next one is the administrative structure. So what kind of administration goes on in the United Nations? The executive will, just now I told you, laws are made. Once laws are made, it should be implemented. Implementation is called as execution. The executive wing of the United Nations is the UN Secretariat. So this is the third one. Third one, it is UN Secretariat. It is headed by the Secretary General. Who is the head of this? Secretary General, who is elected by the General Assembly. So this man is elected by the General Assembly. Okay. The Secretary General, along with his cabinet and other officials, they run the United Nations. So remember, the Secretary General, that's one man. He's got a group of people and other officers, they run the United Nations. The International Court of Justice. Now this is another organization, the International Court of Justice, headquartered at The Hague in Holland. So its headquarters is at Hague, which is in Holland. It is the judicial wing. So any kind of fight, any kind of dispute, any kind of solving has to be done here. Is the judicial wing of the United Nations. The Economic and Social Council. Now this is the next organ. The Economic and Social Council. It is the 5th organ of the United Nations. So we have learnt the 5th one. First one is General Assembly, second one is Security Council, third one is the UN Secretariat, the 4th one is the International Court of Justice, 5th one is the Economic and Social Council. Now this is responsible for coordinating all the economic and social work of the United Nations. The Regional Economic Commission, functioning for regional development across the various regions of the world, that is Asia Pacific, West Asia, Europe, Africa and Latin America, are organs of the UCOSOC. What is UCOSOC? UCOSOC, the Economic and Social Council. So there are various people, countries. They have been very successful and have been headed by eminent economists. Economics is person who talks about money, economy we say, like Gunnar Myrdal. Now these are the 5 main important organs. Organs means groups in the United Nations. Now we learn about the other important organs of the United Nations. Associated, that means connecting organization, deals with areas of critical interest to the world at large like food, health and education and culture. So we need groups to coordinate about food. We need groups which can talk about health and education and culture. They are Food and Agricultural Organization. So this is one organization in the United Nations. Which one? Food and Agricultural Organization. Second one we have is World Health Organization. Now during this pandemic time, you know, this comes out every single day on the television, which is the World Health Organization. UNESCO, that is UN Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. There are also special organizations funded voluntarily by member countries. Now apart from this, there are special organizations, and these organizations, remember, organizations are groups and they are funded. Funded means given money. So for a group to run, you know, you need money, and this money is given by member countries, members who are there in the UN. The two best known among them are UNICEF, which is United Nations Children's Fund, which promotes child health and welfare across the world. This is again a very important organ, UNICEF, which talks about children, their health and their welfare. And the UNDP, that is United Nations Development Program, which focuses on development. Next one, this is again a very important question, activities of the UN. Now we learnt what are the organs in the UN. Now we study what activities, what work does the UN do. Over the decades, decades means 10 years together, we call it as a decades. Okay, so over the decades, the United Nations has, again let me give you a hint here, United Nations, don't confuse yourself with United States. Okay, that's different, this is different. United Nations has expanded its activities in response to the changing problems facing the world. So now this was this United Nation was formed after World War II. So that was formed to bring peace. Now here, now at present, these days, if you see, world is facing so many issues. So according to those issues, the United Nations is changing its activities. Thus in 1960s, decolonization was an important issue. So here they are just referring to 1960, where countries which were colonized were set free. That was an issue, and during that time United Nations was solving that problem. Human rights, the problems of refugees. Refugees are when people move from one country because of a fight or some cause, they move and get themselves settled in another country, they are called as refugees. Climate change, UN even looks into climate change. They talk about gender equality, and all now within the ambit of the activities of the United Nations. So all this comes under the activities of the UN. A special mention must be made of the UN peacekeeping force. So one of the most important work is peacekeeping. They are responsible for keeping peace in the world, which has acted in many areas of conflicts all over the world. The Indian Army has been an important part of the peacekeeping force and has been deployed. Deployed means they have been made use in many parts of the world. The next one, the World Bank. The World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Remember when we studied the first part, we learnt this, okay. We learnt about these three, okay. Referred to as the Bretton Woods twins, which are the ones World Bank and International Monetary Fund. They are referred to as Bretton Woods twins. Were both established. They were set up in 1945 after the Bretton Woods Conference, which took place in 1944. Located, now where is this located? It is in Washington DC in the United States. They have the same membership, since a country cannot be a member of the bank without being a member of the fund. So if a country wants to be a member, first it should be a member of the International Monetary Fund, then only it can be a member of the World Bank. So the two main organs of the World Bank are, now under World Bank we have two organs: International Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the International Development Agency. Together they are often referred to as World Bank. Which two are called as World Bank? One, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development and International Development Agency. These two together are called as World Bank. The main responsibility of the IBRD in the initial years was to fund the reconstruction activities under the Marshall Plan in the European countries devastated by the war. So what is the main work of IBRD? Initially they were reconstructing the country after they have met a huge loss in the war. The agenda later expanded to promote economic development. So initially they wanted to set the country right. They wanted to take off that country from the clutches of war, and then they started to give economic development to poorer countries, and the bank lends money to various countries for developmental projects. A further area of interest is poverty alleviation. So if a country is it's under poverty, then they would try to elevate means increase their level, especially in the rural areas of developing countries. The International Development Agency, which is IDA, also lends money to governments for developmental activities. These loans, so how do they develop this? They give loans which are called as soft loans at a very low interest rate, and this loan is given for how many years? 50 years. The International Finance Corporation, IFC, mainly functions with private enterprises in developing countries. Private is individual people, they come forward to help in developing countries. In recent years, the bank is actively promoting the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals, which aim at improving living standards. So now at present, what is the bank doing? It is improving the living standards. It is removing illiteracy. Illiteracy is it is giving education to people. They are empowering, they are creating awareness among women and improving maternal and child health, improving the environment, and they are also eradicating. Eradicating is destroying, or they are stopping AIDS. Okay, so that's the work right now done by the bank. International Monetary Fund, this is one more organization, IMF. The International Monetary Fund was primarily the brainchild, so it was the base of whom? Harry Dexter White and John Maynard Keynes, the famous economics. So this person, these two people, they were the cause for this International Monetary Fund. That's why we call it as brainchild. So who is the brain behind that? These two people. It was formally organized in 1945 with how many countries? 29 member countries. It now has a membership of 189 countries are there right now. Its primary objective, that means its main purpose, is to ensure financial stability and development across the world. So what is its work? It ensures that each country is financially stable. Financially means money wise it is stable, and development also. The main agenda is to promote international monetary cooperation, expansion of international trade and exchange stability. So three works. It's promoting international monetary cooperation, it is expanding international trade, it is also doing exchange of stability. The fund lends money from its resources to countries facing balance of payment problems. So how do they help is, whichever country has problems of paying back money, they come forward to help those type of countries. It however imposes, so when they come to help, it imposes, it puts them into stringent conditions. Stringent means it's a tough conditions on the borrowing nation. So whichever nation, whichever country is borrowing, on that nation they put all their rules and they try to reduce their expenditure, selavu expenditure. This is often unpopular, especially among the developing countries, which may have to cut down on various programs which provide subsidies to the people. So when they are not allowed to use their money liberally, then they will have to cut down certain things, right? So that was a main problem. That's what we see here. The next part of it with this, the objectives of the IMF are to foster means to help global monetary cooperation, that's what we just now saw, secure financial stability, facilitate international trade, promote high employment and sustainable economic growth, and reduce poverty around the world. Now in this part we have already learnt it in the previous paragraph. So these are the works of the IMF. Post-war welfare states in Europe. So after the war, which are the states in Europe which were which were able to make benefit out of it. The term welfare state refers to the concept that the government is responsible for the social and economic welfare of the people. Welfare is nalan, okay. Thus expanding the role of the state beyond providing defense and maintaining law and order. So here the work is not only to give them to defend them from war, but also to maintain law and order. In 1942, the report commonly known as the Beveridge Report was published in the United Kingdom, which proposed a series of measures which the government should adopt to provide citizens with adequate income, healthcare, education, housing and employment to overcome poverty and disease, which were the major impediments to general welfare. Now, so for the general human beings to develop themselves, we need to provide them adequate enough income, we need to give them health care, we need to give them education, we need to give them housing, we need to give them employment, we need to overcome their poverty, and we need to give them a stay away from disease. Now all this was done by a report which was called as the Beveridge Report, which was published which came out in 1942. After the war, the Labour Party was voted into power in Britain. So who came to power in Britain after the war? The Labour Party. It promised to undertake steps to look after the people. So this Labour Party told the people of Britain that they will take care of Britain from the cradle to the grave. So cradle is, when babies are born, you put them in a cradle, thalat, the place where you put the child and you, okay, that's called as a cradle. Grave is till the death. Legislation was enacted. Legislation, again, laws were enacted to provide comprehensive free health coverage. So there was a law for them to have free health coverage to the citizens through the National Health Service, and monetary benefits like old age pension and unemployment benefits, child care services and family welfare services. So health care they gave, free health coverage they gave, then they gave old age pension they gave, unemployment benefits, if they were unemployed they had some benefits, then they gave child care services and also family welfare services. These are in addition to the universal free school education to all children, and they also gave free school education for all children. The benefits can either be achieved through cash transfers like old age pension and unemployment compensation, or through free services. In addition, these countries also try to minimize economic disparities. Disparities are differences through progressive taxation. So if they face any problem economically, what they do is they solve that by putting taxes step by step. By taxing, and how they tax people is they tax the high income groups with higher rates. That's how they do it, and so that they could benefit the countries in Europe. So with that, this session is over.